In LA County, homelessness went up 70% over the last decade. In that same decade, 30 nonprofits that work on homelessness saw their combined revenue go from about $12,000 to $121 million. The problem grew, the industry grew faster. Both of those numbers are real, both come from the same county, both happened at the same time. One number comes from the county's own annual street count. The other comes from the public tax forms these organizations are required to file every year. So here's the question nobody seems to be asking. If a problem keeps getting worse while the people paid to solve it keep getting richer, what exactly are they being paid for? Let's actually look at what the homeless industry means. It's not one company, it's not one program, it's a whole ecosystem and it has layers. Layer 1, the nonprofits. Organizations like People Assisting the Homeless, Heluna Health, CAMBA, the Coalition for the Homeless. Their top executives make between $300,000 and $700,000 a year. One New York City shelter director admitted to taking over $2 million in undisclosed pay on top of her salary. That's not a rumor, that's a guilty plea filed with the state attorney general. Layer 2, the builders, construction firms that specialize in what's called supportive housing, an apartment with a caseworker and a key. One unit of homeless housing in LA costs around $600,000 to build. A standard one-bedroom apartment in the same city costs about $300,000. Same building materials, same neighborhood, double the price. Layer 3, the consultants. Cities pay outside firms to write reports about what to do about homelessness. San Francisco spent over $1.5 billion on nonprofit contracts in a single year. The reports get filed, the homeless count keeps climbing, the next contract goes out. Layer 4, the sweepers, private companies paid by cities to clear tent encampments. Investigative reporters found these firms have been paid at least $100 million across California alone. They tear down a tent city this week. The same tent city is back next month. They get paid again. Add it all up, there are people whose entire careers exist because homelessness exists. If homelessness ended tomorrow, their jobs would end with it. Imagine a pharmacy. The pharmacist is good. She's trained, she cares about her patients, she went into pharmacy school for the right reasons. Now imagine the pharmacy only makes money when patients come back sick. The treatment that cures them, she gets nothing for that. The treatment that manages their symptoms forever, she gets paid every month. She's not stealing, she's not doing anything wrong on paper, she's responding to the system she's in. And every decision that system asks her to make slowly tilts toward managing instead of curing. That's the homeless nonprofit sector, not because the people are bad, because the funding is structured around people served, not people housed permanently. Here's how it works. Most nonprofit operating budgets are 60 to 70% labor costs. The money comes from government grants and those grants are tied to programs. More people in the program, more funding next year. Fewer people in the program, less funding. Staff get cut. So the organization's survival is tied directly to the size of the problem it's supposed to be solving. Now look at how success gets measured. The standard metric is people served. That sounds reasonable until you realize the same person can be counted every single year. A homeless man who cycles through the same shelter 4 winters in a row counts as 4 instances of service. If he leaves and finds stable housing, the number goes down, the metric gets worse. Which means, structurally, a person staying homeless is better for the paperwork than a person getting housed. Los Angeles launched a program called Inside Safe. It moved homeless people into motel rooms, cost to taxpayers over $300 million. About 5,500 people were reached. Nearly 40% of them ended up back on the street, but the program was reported as a success. Why? Because the number of people served went up. Nobody in this story is a villain. The pharmacist didn't become a pharmacist to keep people sick, but the system she works inside quietly rewards continuation over resolution. If the Coalition for the Homeless ended homelessness in New York tomorrow, the Coalition for the Homeless would not exist next year. Every nonprofit board member knows this, even if nobody says it out loud. So decisions get made quietly, professionally, with good intentions that keep the organization alive. And keeping the organization alive means keeping the problem alive, not on purpose, just by design. Here's a strange phenomenon. Walk into any airport, find a bottle of water, $5, the exact same bottle, same brand, same water sitting on a shelf at a convenience store down the street, $1.29. Why same bottle, same water, different building? The airport bottle isn't expensive because of the water, it's expensive because you can only buy water inside the airport. Captive customer, no competition, regulated space. The markup just goes up. Homeless housing works the same way. A one-bedroom apartment in Los Angeles costs about $300,000 to build. The same one-bedroom unit, same neighborhood, same materials, but built as supportive housing for the homeless, costs about $600,000. One project hit $837,000 per unit. What changed? Not the building, the bill. Here's what happens when public money enters a construction project. There's a federal law that says any project paid with public dollars has to pay construction workers a set wage, usually 1.5 to 2 times what the same worker would earn on a private job down the block. Same hammer, same nail, higher hourly rate. Then come the city approvals. The city controller's office found that permits, environmental studies, and legal reviews alone added roughly $120,000 per unit. On a private apartment, that process takes about a year. On a publicly funded homeless housing project, it takes 3 to 6 years. Then come the consultants. Because it's a public project, the city requires outside legal opinions, outside auditors, outside community engagement specialists, each one billing separately. By the time the building actually exists, the math behind it has nothing to do with how much shelter costs. It has everything to do with how much a publicly funded project can absorb. Los Angeles voters passed a $1 billion bond in 2016 to build 10,000 supportive housing units. 10 years later, just over 6,000 exist. The homeless person ends up living in a $600,000 apartment that 10 blocks away costs $300,000. Same walls, same view, different invoice. Imagine taking your car to a mechanic. The mechanic plugs in the diagnostic tool, reads the codes, hands you a printout, says you should bring it back next week so I can run a deeper scan. Next week, deeper scan, new printout. Now we need to check the transmission separately. A month later, another visit, another printout, another recommendation to come back. You've spent thousands of dollars on diagnostics. The car still won't start. Every visit generated a bill, every bill got paid, every printout went in a file. The mechanic never actually opened the hood with a wrench. That's homeless policy in most American cities. Here's the cycle. A city identifies a homelessness problem. The city puts out a contract asking companies to bid on a study. A consulting firm wins the bid. The firm produces a report. The report recommends a set of actions. The city adopts some of them partially. A year passes. The problem persists. The city says it needs a new analysis. A new contract goes out, often to the same firm or one just like it. The reports get written. The recommendations stay partial. The contracts renew. The homeless count climbs. San Francisco spent over $1.5 billion on nonprofit contracts in a single recent year. During the same period, homelessness in the city kept rising. Hundreds of reports were produced. Dozens of pilot programs were launched. A pilot program is a small trial run. By definition, it has a study period, an analysis period, then a decision period. Each stage requires outside consultants. Each consultant bills separately. By the time one pilot is evaluated, the next one is already being commissioned. The result is a system where action is permanently delayed by analysis. The analysis is always the deliverable. The building, the bed, the key in someone's hand, those are incidental. Here's the trick that holds the whole thing together. Consulting contracts are evaluated on whether the consultant finished the report, not on whether anybody got housed, so the report is always the success. The homeless person is never the metric. The reports moved fast, the buildings did not. Step back, 3 layers, 1 shape. Nonprofits depend on the problem, their funding, their staff, their measurements, all built around how many people they serve. If the problem ends, they end with it. Construction costs inflate around the problem. The same apartment costs twice as much when it carries the label of supportive housing, not because the building is different, because the invoice gets to be different. Consulting contracts recycle the problem, the reports get written, the diagnostics keep running, the buildings get talked about more than they get built. Now look at what this combination produces: a whole industry where every player is rewarded for the problem continuing, not solving it, continuing it. Reports get filed, salaries get paid, buildings cost twice as much as they should, contracts renew, the homeless count climbs. Nobody in this picture is a villain, almost nobody is stealing. The pharmacist isn't corrupt, the architect isn't a fraud, the consultant isn't lying. They're all professionals doing their jobs inside a system that quietly pays better when the work is never finished. That's the trick. The homeless industrial complex isn't one person being evil. It's 1,000 people doing their jobs inside a structure where the jobs assume the problem. Every grant application assumes homelessness will exist next year. Every construction contract assumes there will be another one after it. Every consulting engagement assumes the need for a follow-up study. The whole apparatus is built on the quiet certainty that the problem will still be here tomorrow. If the homeless count dropped to 0 next Tuesday, none of these buildings, contracts, salaries, programs, or reports would survive the year. So they don't drop it, not on purpose, just by everyone doing what their paycheck asks them to do. So here's the question I'll leave you with. When America spends billions on homelessness every year, are we trying to solve the problem, or are we paying the people who live off the problem? The national homeless count just hit an all-time high, over 770,000 people on a single night. The industry around it is also at an all-time high. Both numbers can't be coincidence, both numbers can't be unrelated. Maybe we don't have a homeless problem, maybe we have a homeless industry problem. And we keep paying its bill.